If that doesn't get your juices going, nothing will. Cheap and easy. And we're not talking about your ex. This has to be the best type of pulled beef you can make at home. If you're not pulling your meat, filming it, and then putting it online, well, that should be illegal. Actually, I think it is illegal. Don't do that. Oh, let's get into it. Today, we're going to make pulled beef with a chuck roast. Correction. We're smoking a chuck roast hot and fast to make the best pulled beef you've ever had. Okay then. Cooking time for this recipe will be 5 hours. Or for those of you who love to use my beer timer, you're looking at a 10 beer cook. Cheers. Did you know there's a way of you showing that you like this video? By giving it a thumbs up. To make some pulled beef out of chuck roast, we're going to need a chuck roast. Enter Mick from Gippsland Premium Meats, who supplied me with this 2 kilograms of beefy goodness. Look at it in all of its glory. Tasty beef and intramuscular fat. That's it. We're now ready for some flavour. With any large cut of meat, I recommend taking it out of the fridge an hour before you need it. This visual reminder is there purely to remind you while you're drinking that you're meant to be smoking some meat. When it comes to seasoning a large piece of meat, you have to remember one thing. It can handle a lot of seasoning. More and more, I'm seeing people under-seasoning larger cuts of meat. Now, in saying that, we're keeping the seasoning simple, we're still adding a lot, but simply using SPG or salt, pepper, garlic. Sergeant Seasoning on board for action. Enemy acquired, preparing to salt. Enemy advancing, reloading with pepper. They just won't stop, finishing off with garlic. My SPG ratio for this cook is equal parts of salt, coarse pepper and garlic granules. Don't forget to season every surface of your meat evenly, even underneath. What seasoning you use is a personal preference, just like whether or not you subscribe to this channel. Today I'm using a 57cm Weber kettle, and I'm also pairing it up with some Heat Beads Original briquettes because I'm going to be utilising the snake method today because I want to be smoking at temps of 150 degrees Celsius today. And how I'll do that is by stacking briquettes around the edge of the charcoal grate on a 45-degree angle, leaning up against each other. Then I'll add a second row right next to the first row. You want them nice and snug and tight. The neater we make this, the more even our temps will be. And then finishing off with a top row. And this is commonly known as the 2x1 snake, as we have 2 rows underneath and 1 on top. And then I'll place 14 briquettes into a chimney starter and light them up. And once they're fully ashed over, I'll dump them on one side of the snake. And that's going to act like a fuse. Don't forget to add a drip pan because this chuck roast is going to be squirting juice like it has its very own OnlyFans page. That was smart. Get off it. Nothing wrong with that. Then I'll grab a couple of chunks of cherry wood, placing them on the snake, but I'm leaving a gap of 50mm because wood burns quicker than the charcoal briquettes. So make sure your wood chunks aren't touching, otherwise you are going to get massive heat spikes. Now, as that snake curves around burning and as it reaches each wood chunk, you will get small heat spikes, but that is perfectly normal. Carefully put your grill back in. Now put the lid back on, making sure all of the vents are wide open, and you want that vent on the opposite side of that lit fuel. Once the temp gets around 30 degrees Celsius off our target temp of 150 degrees Celsius, we want to start closing down that bowl vent. And I generally close mine down to about 1/4 open, and what will happen is the heat will slow down and you should stop at your target temp. Once you have your temp stable for 30 minutes, it's time to put your meat in. You can use a thermometer probe attached to your grill to track the ambient temp in your barbecue more accurately. The Weber's temp has been stable for 30 minutes, So we can put the chuck roast in the Weber on the opposite side of that lit fuel. Grab a spray bottle and give your meat a spritz all over. And then put your lid back on, keeping that lid vent on the opposite side of your lit fuel because it'll drag the heat and the smoke over it. And I'll come back and check that in 2 hours. By spritzing our meat, we are promoting smoke to adhere to it because smoke is attracted to anything that is moist. More smart. Oh, get off it. Moist. It's a great, it's a great word. Oh, and for those wondering, my spritzing formula is made up of 3 equal parts. It's 1 part beef stock to 1 part beef stock to 1 part beef stock. Just remember to give it a shake up before each use. Did you know if you share this video right now, you'll make me very happy? We are now 2 hours down in our cook and I just want to check and see how that chuck roast is coming along. It's looking great. We may as well check the internal temp while we are here. It's reading 53 degrees Celsius internally so far. I would really like this bark to be a little more set as well. Put the lid back on and we're going to let this chuck roast ride out for another hour. How much you let your bark set is purely a personal preference, but most people start the next stage in smoking a large cut of beef when the internal temp reaches anywhere between 70 degrees Celsius and 75 degrees Celsius. The chuck roast has been smoking away for 3 hours now, so it's time to check on it again. I'm loving the colour and it is reading internally at 70 degrees Celsius. So we can get it off the heat. I'll put it in some flexible metal that I have resting in a tray. Adding in 100 grams of unsalted butter and a 1/4 cup of warmed up beef stock. Wrap this up, pop it back in the Weber, and we'll wait until that is probing tender. And that's usually going to be around 93 to 99 degrees Celsius internally. Temps when smoking meat are just a guide. Always go by feel, by using a skewer to see if it's ready or not. The chuck roast has spent the last 2 hours resting in a beef stock and butter bath. So it's time to get it out. Now just remember, there's going to be a lot of steam in this, so when we open up that foil, don't have your head over it. Move away, let the steam go and you won't get burnt in the face. Now remember, keep your face away and just carefully open up that foil package and there's all that steam. And there's our glorious chuck. We may as well check the temp while we're here. Around about 93, 94. But temp is just a guide. We want to probe it with a wooden skewer and see if it slides in and out without any resistance. And guess what? It slides in and out like it's lubricated.
That's what she said.
Now, I like to leave large cuts of meat unopened and not wrapped up before I hold them, just to allow that steam to escape. What you need to remember is when we're wrapping up any large cut of meat and holding it in an esky, what we're trying to do is just slowly lower the temp. We don't want to leave it wrapped up with all that steam in there and have that temp constantly climbing and overcooking our meat. Hence why allow it to steam off. Now we can wrap that chuck roast back up in the flexible metal, and then we're going to wrap that up in an old towel and then place that into an esky, then put the lid on and we're going to hold that in the esky for 1 hour. Now did you notice I said hold and not rest? You rest a small piece of meat like a steak and you hold larger cuts like this chuck roast that you've cooked way past eating temperature. And what you want it to do is slowly come back down to a normal temp. Now some people still argue the point and say it's called resting your meat. Well, they're just plain silly and wrong. The chuck has been holding up in this esky for an hour now. So it's time to see what we've created. Grab it out of the esky, open up the towel, And because we are dealing with hot food, we want to put on some cotton gloves first and then add some nitrile gloves over the top. Then we just want to get it out of the foil packaging and onto a chopping board. And now let's be unconventional and let's slice into it. Oh, how good does that look? Nice. This right here, this is what you came for. I mean, look how easy that is coming apart. All you got to do now is pull it all apart and get rid of any of the fat and gristle. And once you've pulled all your beef apart, you want to place it into a tray, and then the liquid gold that's in the flexible metal, you want to pour some of that over the pulled beef and just massage it through. And that's the final product. The smoking meat is just the start. Now we get to eat it.